College football fans, welcome back to the College Ball Show. He's Marshall. I'm Chris, and we're here to talk some college football. Now, obviously, we're fresh off Rivalry week, and boy, did we get a lot of rivalry stuff. Finally, we were just talking about this off air. A lot of folks would have fired Harbaugh, but Michigan did. They extended him instead, and here we are, 42-27 after 0-5. We know, especially those 2 years, it came down to the overtime. Did he get the first down? And then the block punt against Michigan State, scoop and score. Crazy stuff happened, and it looked like this. It kind of looked like that had taken its toll these last few years. How they were still quality program, no doubt about it. Play defense, run the ball, yada, yada, yada. But it didn't look like they were going to be able to compete at the high level. It just didn't. And it sure did on Saturday. So big shots out to the Michigan Wolverines for getting that job done. Auburn, speaking of, almost got the job done against Alabama. My co-host has got a nice little rant on that. Oklahoma State did get the job done against the in-state rival Oklahoma. That was a nice win. So now they're going to face Baylor, who barely got past Texas Tech. So yeah, wide variety of stuff to cover, no doubt about it. My Minnesota Gophers got the axe from Wisconsin, so that's always fun. So yeah, we're going to definitely break down week 13, and then of course the conference championship games coming up. The rematch from a butt whooping 2 weeks ago, Utah, Oregon. Vegas says, hold your horses. It's going to be close. Oklahoma State and Baylor for the Big 12. On the low Sun Belt, Louisiana are Raging Cajuns and Appalachian State. Alabama, Georgia. You would assume Alabama. Well, we shouldn't assume anything when it comes to the Crimson Tide and Nick Saban, but you'd assume they got to win to get in. Cincinnati, Houston, Michigan, Iowa. And I was just talking about this as well. This looks so strange of a matchup. Is this like a COVID makeup game? Pittsburgh and Wake Forest in the ACC championship game. You got to love it. Usually that's Clemson, and then a handful of years before that, it was Florida State on that side, and then just a mixed bag of everything coming from the Coastal. So that's really cool looking, too. Now, of course, we got to talk about some coaching carousel thing going on. We got LSU, we got Notre Dame, we got USC, we got a $6 million house purchase. There's a whole lot of stuff that we'll get to in just a little bit. But if this is your first time listening to the College Ball Show, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/rope-a-dope radio. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-a-dope and download the show directly there. Listen to the browser if you don't want to. You can find this here College Ball Show on the Rope-a-Dope radio podcast platform on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. Why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And one more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called Direct TV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99 a month. It's the best of live TV and on demand. No annual contracts, no hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice or Ultimate package, that'll give you 3 free months of HBO Max, plus you get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees. And if you go all the way to the Premier package, that'll give you HBO Max and Showtime included in the price per month. That's Direct TV Stream. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Marshall, and let him do his thing. And, Marshall, beyond what you're going to talk about, I don't know. I never know what you're going to rant about, or talk about, whatever. But let's get this coaching stuff out of the way as well before we get to recap and preview and predictions and all that stuff.
Sure. I normally always start off with a rant, and it's kind of a rant just because I have a good buddy of mine. He's like kind of a younger brother, like not by blood, but like my best friend's cousin. So he's become a younger brother, and he's as confused as me. And I think we're not the only people But my opening rant confusion is, why did LSU hire Brian Kelly? Like, I get that Coach O, was maybe pursuing some people he shouldn't have, and that got in some hot water. Maybe the boys were having a little too much fun partying. But if you're looking for a fit, like a personality of a coach with a team, like when Coach O spoke after pregames and said, like, "Go Tigers," like that, he's like a true Cajun person. Like, I can't even try to do the voice, but like Coach O literally was LSU. Like, that is him. And and you wonder why his guys always got up for him and played games. And again, they beat A&M. I gave out that pick, and I gave out the spread against Auburn Bama. So I went 2-0 on those
just
picks.
you? You were on that Auburn? That's just you, huh? Okay.
We both were. We both were. But
yeah.
I just, you go from a Cajun to a guy who's just like the prim, proper fit dude from Notre Dame. I don't see it. Like, and and again, it could turn out to be a good choice, but especially with college football.
It's not a bad choice.
No,
I'll say that.
it's not a bad choice. It's just like, you normally have like a personality ties to a coach. And it's just such a big transformation to go from a literally guy from Louisiana to a guy who it's just a huge different personality. And the choice to me just seemed weird. Now, you can look at his resume and say, okay, clearly the guy's done a tremendous job at Notre Dame. His win-loss record is spectacular. But now you're walking into a conference where you're going to have to play probably the best teams in the country, and you're going to have to raise your game up. You're not going to have, it's just such a huge switch. When I saw the name pop up, again, strictly off, if you're disregarding personality, what I'm saying, but just off win-loss, it's a good decision. But just for the personality, when I saw that Brian Kelly was going to LSU, I was like, wow, that just, it caught me off guard. I can kind of see the Lincoln Riley USC, like, hey, this guy's got a flashy offense. He always gets these quarterbacks in. Like, that's something USC needs. I don't know who maybe would have been the better fit, but it just, Brian Kelly and LSU were like, how's that going to play out? And what do you think about it, Chris?
Well, I'll tell you this. I got a little bit different viewpoint on it.
Sure.
Well, first and foremost, this year doesn't necessarily capture Notre Dame's normal schedule. I'll say that, right? They didn't have a tough schedule per se this year. But overall, and since I've been watching college football, which I don't want to date myself, but it's been a while, they've generally speaking had a tough ass schedule. They just do. If you look at the rivalries, Michigan, USC, like they generally have a tough schedule. So I'm not saying that it's as tough as the SEC. I'm just saying that is one thing that they normally did have because they challenged themselves in the everything was a non-conference, I suppose, right? But my thing is, if you're able to build a top flight program at Notre Dame, which there's really only one guy that got him kind of close in the last 20 some odd, or longer than that. My thing is, if you look at it, like we were talking off air, that, Creighton-Durham Hall is a big football, Catholic school here, private school. And those, private Catholic schools are all over the country for obvious, A lot of them are just that. A lot of them are sports oriented as well. And you could say that Notre Dame has the pick of the litter off of that, and that is true. But as we know, the standards of academics to get into LSU and basically beyond like Vanderbilt and Florida to an extent, it's fairly easy to get into those schools on average, right? So he's going to have his pick at a wide variety of athlete that wants to come to the SEC, and it's just a much bigger pool. So my point is, if he was able to build that program to get to the final, to get to the championship game and then to get to the semifinals as well, and then this year, still pretty good, but, whatever this year, but not a bad year, obviously.
No.
I think that, yes, I think it's more strange that he left the team Now, I don't think they're going to make it, but you could still say they have a chance to make it. So that's crazy to me because that's never happened where you're literally having a chance to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to, but if you have a chance to make the playoffs and then you dip, but then again, he's been there a long time and he's seen once you even make the playoffs, the limitations. And so I do think it is different to be able, I mean, just your state alone in the last 20 years, the improvement of Louisiana football and how many recruits come out of there, let alone just folks wanting to go to the SEC. I mean, it happens in South Florida all the time. A lot of players go to the SEC out of that. So I actually think it's a better fit than people are saying. And I understand what you're saying, no doubt about it. You're not going to find a Cajun, though, another Cajun that's going to be equipped to coach the team to a top 10 team. You know what I mean? I doubt you'll get that anyway.
Fair.
But in a couple of years, don't act like he won't have some Cajun slang, and he'll be talking. He'll be a Southern gentleman before you know it. Trust me on that. And he's a spark plug. You know, that dude turns red pretty quick. You know, so he's a disciplinary, and he tried to do some okey doke stuff up there, and they got, you know, he lost. His record should be better up there, if you know what I mean, because he lost some games. Remember that. So I think it actually is a lot better fit than the general consensus of it. But I do know what you're saying. I hear you out.
And the other major one is obviously for USC. This is probably the best, again, I've had probably the second coolest moment besides Sam Darnold winning the Rose Bowl. So in the past 12 years, a moment of happiness is Lincoln Riley going to USC, a team I do support, but I don't talk about much on the podcast because they're not worth it. This is a college football podcast, not a Marshall's favorite team podcast. But my favorite team might be coming more relevant again due to that signing. I think the Clay Helton experiment went about 3 years overdue. This is not me. This was many people in the country, but they kept finding weird reasons to keep him around. He had a couple of quarterbacks I think carried him a little bit more than the skill he offered as a coach. But nonetheless, Lincoln Riley kind of snuck away at midnight and is now coaching a team who has all the potential to be, especially on that side of the map, to be a really good team and within a year or two go back to contending for a playoff spot. And not to say that Lincoln Riley will get there and snap his fingers and have a club like we've seen with Bama, Clemson, Ohio State. But if you're looking at just the issues they face compared to Bama or an Ohio State, you're in an easier conference. You're recruiting when USC has people in power that you want to play for. They can recruit their ass off. That's one thing that Orgeron, Kiffin, it did kind of fall off under Helton, but for the most part, Pete Carroll, you get all the talents in the world when USC is hot and running. Like that's a fun team to swag, to just play for. Like Lincoln Riley's going to get kids. He already signed a top 3 quarterback in the 2023 class, and he's got kids who are going to fall into Oklahoma now going to USC. So the talent's going to get there. I'm not sure how the deal got done, but it did. So all of a sudden it's a program upgrade. The team should be back to being at least relevant again, I hope. They still got to, get a defense coordinator, I guess, and all that stuff, and make some pieces work together. But as a USC fan, Chris, again, besides winning the Rose Bowl, Darnold, which appears to be a long time ago, this is the second best moment the team has had, and now there's a cause for hope and just to be something optimistic about. Because just to be positive, and I'll throw it to you, you look at what Lincoln Riley did with an offense in Oklahoma. If you can install that same kind of offense of gimmick in USC with the talent you should be able to get, you're looking up all of a sudden. And again, your main 2 horses to play each year is Oregon and Utah. Those are your 2, who do we got to face? That's it. So it's very optimistic future for now for USC.
Yeah, no, it makes a whole lot of sense, especially with Oklahoma having going to the SEC when they go there. Makes a ton of sense. I mean, and you don't have to sit there and battle as much in the state of Texas like he probably had to do, because there's 1,700 schools there now that are good, or at least pretty good. And so Yeah, I think it makes all the sense in the world. And the rumored $6 million house in L.A., imagine what that thing's going to be worth in 20 years when he retires. Overall retiring and just living it up. So yeah, man, that made all this. I think that is a great fit. I don't see how that goes bad. And to be the number one brand in the state of California, you think he has some talent, which he obviously did at Oklahoma. It's going to be that much better, no doubt about it. Anything else before we get into this? Because we got to talk about Michigan and Ohio State and a variety of other games from Week 13.
Oh, I would just say that Billy Napier, the former Raging Cajuns coach, is now at Florida, and
good call.
And Vatek hired Penn State's D coordinator. So again, and Vatek, I'm not saying they can become Ohio State, damn Auburn, but Vatek used to be a pretty proud program because you had a coach who was there for almost 2 decades. So that's kind of like a B-level job, which again, you can get Vatek back again. That's a good spot to land to. So I don't know anything about the Penn State coordinator, but that ain't a bad. There's much worse gigs to have than a Vatek head job. So, and we'll see how the guy does.
They've had a pretty damn good defense with a lot of talent over the years, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And always had great special team plays too. Mm-hmm.
Guy Parsons, that dude's a freaking stud, man.
He is.
He really is. He's all over the place. And then who's going to go to Notre Dame? I mean, is all of a sudden the Cincinnati coach going to be like, well, interesting. Maybe I'll go there and then dip on his team too. Like, is Notre Dame going to really be like, hey man, we'll let you go do the bowl game? I don't know about that. You know what they got to do? They got to figure out, kind of like, I'll give you an example. It's changed now, but the MLB, the contracts, between the players and the owners, they actually used to, that's why they had the strike before the playoffs, because it used to be at the end of the season, and that year where they had the full season and it didn't have the postseason, which that really hurt me as a kid. I was like, are you kidding me? Well, they got to figure this out. They got to figure out recruiting and maybe push it back into January. I know the national signing day is in February, but they have that early signing, which is dope, the early signing. They got to find a way where we got to have a different system, because recruiting is such a huge thing. And of course, I understand if you're going to spend all this money and you're going to, try to move on, you got to have the coach show up. And not all that long ago, and I'm not talking 5 years, you could actually more than likely, stay a little bit longer. Some of them did. But still, if it's a top program, they want you down. They're not worried about anything like that. So I wish they could find some kind of different. I know you got to get them in, and that's the thing where school comes into play, because you got to get them in for the people that are going to be there early so they can start. But I don't know. It's funky. It's real funky, because it would be crazy if the Cincinnati coach, of course you're going to jump on Notre Dame. But it's just crazy. It's a weird system. A lot of people are down on it right now. Oh, this sucks, that sucks. But this is what it is, man. It's been going on for a long time. All right, so, man, when you look at, C.J. Stroud threw the ball a bunch of times, almost 400 yards, lost, got sacked a bunch of times, negative 30 yards. He has 6 carries for negative 30 yards and negative 5 a clip because of those sacks. But Michigan, my goodness gracious. I mean, 297 yards on 41 carries, 6 touchdowns. Haskins ties the school record with 5 of them. 7.2 a clip. Marshall, they just slowly but surely grinded down this Ohio State team, and before you know it, they were up 35-20. Now, it got a little tight there, when it got to 35-27 after that nice, really, really nice drive, and I was I couldn't believe how quickly they turned right around. And I'm looking at it, 228, 5 plays, boom, it's 42 to 27. I mean, Michigan just finally put it all together and beat that big brother that's been beaten in 8 straight years.
Hey, it was amazing just because it was such a different moment you don't see. In the second half, Michigan ran the ball down their damn throat, and Ohio State literally couldn't stop them. And Ohio State, I bet you Ohio State maybe, and from what I kind of dozed off at the very end because it didn't matter. You knew the game was over. But I don't think Ohio State had a run of over 10 yards in the third and the fourth quarter when the game mattered. Ohio State literally couldn't run. They could pass. They were passing the ball okay, but they couldn't run, and Michigan State couldn't get stopped, and Ohio State's defense just got ran out the damn gym. Like, that was Michigan saying, hey, we're going to play some hard-nosed football. We got a line this year that can push your line around. And, yeah, it was a rivalry upset, and, God, I could only imagine the happiness of a Michigan fan. You know, you actually have a chance, as long as you don't choke here against Iowa, to make the Final Four. But, yeah, that was just a beatdown where you won the trenches on offensive side and defensive side. Ohio State receivers made a couple of plays, but never in that game. And I'm not saying it was a complete blowout, but never in the second half, if I was a Michigan fan, would have I been super scared. Man, the game was close, but, man, when you run the ball over and over and over and a team can't stop you running the ball, like, dude, milk the clock for 6 minutes and get a touchdown, and then do it again and do it again. And our team couldn't run the ball. That was an ass whooping that Ohio State doesn't get in the Big Ten. It was their first Big Ten loss in 29 conference games, which is, again, mind-blowing that you can do that. But, damn, props to Michigan. You smoked them and just shoved it down their throat. That was a really impressive win and way to dominate the line of scrimmage, which you normally don't see. Because that's one thing Meyer, when he was at Ohio State, always had incredible D-lines. Besides maybe Ohio State getting beat by Alabama or Clemson. Yeah. I can't recall the last time that happened in a game in the Big Ten. That doesn't happen to Ohio State normally. So hats off to Michigan, but don't party and get too big of a head and then blow this whole season to Iowa, because then all of a sudden all the Harbaugh haters are going to come right back out the woodworks, my friend.
Oh, you're right. That would be a major thing, and they need to calm down. I did like the line he had about Day saying, some people don't realize they're born on third base because Irvin built that thing up, obviously. But yeah, that man, the rivalries, man, it's just nice to have it back fully, and it's like I think Fox has been. With college football for quite a while, not as long as ABC and CBS, but quite a while. And that is the biggest game, regular season game that they've had. It was like 15 million people or 16 million people. I don't even know the peak number. I just know the average. I just saw it right before the show on Twitter. So pretty crazy there. Bama and Auburn. Of course, Oklahoma State. We'll talk about a variety of other items here too, kind of summing this stuff up. I'll let you talk about before the drive, but I'll say this: with Young, with the number one running back out, I believe I think their number one wide receiver got hurt too on that last drive, if I remember correctly. To go that long. To get the game into overtime. It was just a crazy game to be 10-0 and 7-0 that long. Well, I mean, when you look at some of these drives, Marshall, interception, turnover on downs. I mean, some of these are long drives, at least 7 plays. One was a 12-play drive. But I gotta give, credit where credit's due. 97 yards in a minute 11, like I said, without your best running back, and I believe without his best wide receiver too. So kudos to Young for doing that, and obviously Bama needed that so bad. But let's talk about before the drive, Marshall.
This is a Bama team who is good, but not your regular Bama team. This is about as pedestrian of a, like, they're Bama's, like, this year they're somewhere between, like, the third to seventh best team in the country. They're in that mix. But normally, you get used to seeing Bama teams who are first or second best in the country and they whoop up on people. That's not been this Bama's team MO all year. Again, you lost to a hideous quarterback in Calzada, and I get all teams make mistakes, but you were a 20-point favorite and you lost to A&M. And then you won by a touchdown against Arkansas, and then you beat LSU by 6 when you were a 28-point favorite, and LSU had a chance to take the lead with like 3 minutes to go. So is this a good football team? Yes. Could they win the national title? Quite possibly, sure. But this is not your regular, like, Roll Tide team. And we saw that, but I think we really saw that get exemplified because, hell, you were, again, a 20-point favorite, and sure, you're on the road at Auburn, but this is an Auburn team who I wish I would have remembered. Bo Nix was out.
Yeah.
Auburn's quarterback, Finley, was gimping the whole game. The dude was playing on a busted knee, but he couldn't go out because Bo Nix was out. So you played a broken quarterback who had like 110 yards passing, and your offense couldn't do shit. And you have talented wide receivers yet again. So I really think this goes to show that this Bama team, well, they had a massive off game, and Auburn played lights out, but it was just a really poor performance. I'll get a quick note in here. I wish that Ole Miss had one more game to play this year because Matt Corral could have still won the Heisman. Because what we saw from the top 2 Heisman locks, Ohio State quarterback didn't do much against Michigan, and sure as hell,
I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that. He didn't do much. Come on.
He didn't play great.
Dude, he had 400 yards passing. It's not like he didn't do anything.
Yeah, something, but it wasn't an incredible performance.
He was getting devoured, though. I mean, just that end alone. How many sacks? What, he set a school record? 3 or 4 sacks in a game?
Yeah, I'm just saying he didn't.
But you said he had a bad game. He didn't have a bad game. That's my point.
Well, okay, he wasn't great against his rival, and Corral beat Mississippi State. I know it's a different team, but still, he won his rivalry game. But and that Bama quarterback.
Wouldn't you say Mississippi State and Ohio State?
It is, but I mean Corral's had as good of a year as these guys, and neither showed up last week. The Bama quarterback, after watching that game, you're telling me he's a top 2 Heisman finalist? You had one drive at the end. You couldn't score. Period. You literally couldn't score on an Auburn team that just got beat by South Carolina. And these are the top 2 finalists. Again, I wish Corral could play this week because I think the Heisman's still in his grasp. I had to get that rant off my chest because neither of those guys
that's where it all
good.
spurs from. You got to put other people down just to bump up your crowd.
Neither of those guys played great, but nonetheless, hey, but to give credit to, you got to give some credit to Bama's defense. They hung in there. Now again,
they had 15 tackles for losses and 6 sacks.
You were literally playing a quarterback who couldn't run, who was a backup. But hey, it was a low scoring game. The crowd was going nuts. I'm sure the crowd kept the energy up. I'm sure people were screaming War Eagle like crazy. But if, let's say you were taking a nap or you woke up or went for a run or went to the bar or something, all of a sudden you look at the score and you're like, 10-0 Auburn. What happened? It was no snowstorm like we saw at Michigan State, Penn State, which was so beautiful to see. I love watching football in the snow. There was no snow. There was no wind. It just, Bama's offense was bad, and Auburn played all they could. And then it came down to a last-second mental lapse, which we'll get to. But, yeah,
I was going to say, you going to get to that at some point?
Okay.
That's what it was going to be about.
But Bama actually probably should have lost the game, or it would have been really tough if it wasn't for a mental mistake by Auburn's running back, Tank Bigsby. So Auburn's trying to run the clock out or maybe milk it really far down.
Yeah.
It's second down, and Auburn's running back runs out of bounds, which, as you know in football, saves Bama from calling a timeout and saves 40 seconds off the play clock, or at least like 36 seconds with a timeout. So that mental mistake there gave Bama the ball back with like a minute, what'd you say, a minute 11?
Yep.
A minute 11.
For 97 yards, too.
Yeah,
So
which is, I'll give him that. That's a great
50
drive.
or 40 seconds.
Yeah, so now you're looking at 30 to 40 seconds. That's really hard to do. So that I personally think if the running back fall down or stayed in bounds, Auburn wins the game. And the whole playoff committee and everyone's minds are blown because Bama blew a game where they couldn't get anything going. So that one mental mistake cost them. It goes into OT. Now again, Auburn had a chance in OT. It went back and forth, back and forth. I'll say this, I'll throw it back to you, Chris.
Just don't bring up the Heisman anymore, okay? Jesus Christ.
Fuck. Those guys, Corral did just as much as those guys did all year, so it's bullshit that it's a two-man race between them. But anyways, and Corral actually runs the ball and has some heart. Anyways, those
guys don't have heart.
Wow, that was an uncalled for shot. But the overtime, and I've heard people talk about this. You know, we've had the rule now, and we did have the crazy 9 overtime game of Penn State, Illinois this year. But did it feel weird to you to see those first 2 overtimes where everyone's just going back and forth, great possessions, and then you see Bama's wide receiver run a little button hook for the win? Was it weird to see the game finish on a 2-yard play, or did you just enjoy the game so much it didn't matter? Like, did that OT in such a cool, great game we had to enjoy of rivalry, did the OT finish kind of push you back to, man, I wish we hadn't done that rule, or did that not really cross your mind that night?
It didn't cross my mind because it was a super low scoring game, so it didn't really cross my mind. They could barely get in the damn end zone anyway. So I guess just on this scenario, it didn't. I'm glad that you brought that up because I don't like it, but in this one it didn't bother me just because it was such a low scoring game. But yeah, maybe they could go 4 overtimes and then go to the 2-point conversion. I don't know. They still got to play with that. They still got to play with some of that, I think, or just maybe force going for 2 right away as far as doing the touchdowns, or maybe do it from the 10 or 15. I don't know. We'll figure it out though. But yeah, only because of the low score. But otherwise, yeah, I'm still not a fan of that. I don't like doing, baseball doesn't do a home run derby. Boxing, in the third, if it's a draw, the 13th round, you don't punch the guy, then he punches you, you punch him. Whoever gets knocked out first, it does kind of go away from, it feels too much like European football, soccer, where it's like, man, this is going to come to that. I don't like it, but in this one, it was a little different. Let's move on though, because we are at the 32-minute mark already. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. This one was a fun one because Oklahoma State did get up a decent amount early. By halftime, it was tied. Then all of a sudden, the Sooners are up. They're rolling 33-24. And these last 2 drives for Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, I mean, a $1.25 strike to get it 33-31. And then 49 seconds after that fumble, quick strike, 3 plays, is 37-33. And, it was kind of, they're trading punts, turnover on downs, back-to-back drives, turnover on downs. Big win for the Cowboys, who would have been in this scenario again either way. So it was nice for them to not have to play Oklahoma back-to-back. Good win for them as a program, no doubt. 11-1 or 11-1 now.
Everyone, so it was odd because I remember talking about this with you that people were betting the under, and like Vegas, like sharps, and everyone saying, "Oh, you gotta go under in this game," which we talked about last podcast. Of like, seriously, like in Bedlam, you're taking the under? Like that's odd. And you even mentioned about how the over/under was in the 50s, which is very low for us, a series we used to have where Baker Mayfield's, like chucking the ball up and then they're getting an answer back. It's like 400 yards passing for quarterbacks. So the Vegas number seemed low, but in reality, Chris, Oklahoma State's defense played really good football. Like Oklahoma scored in a bunch of weird, random ways. You had a botched fumbled safety. You had a fumble return for a touchdown. You had an interception return for a touchdown. Oh, yeah, sorry, you had a muffed punt. Like, Oklahoma State really, actually, defense played phenomenal. I mean, well, not, but they played really good. Like, Oklahoma's offense didn't do much, which we expected. And Oklahoma State's offense surprisingly did just quite enough. Because from the start of the third quarter to the middle of the fourth, with the crazy bunch of plays that all occurred, I just mentioned, all that favored Oklahoma. And all of a sudden you look at the score and you're like, okay, Oklahoma State's defense hasn't given me points yet, but we're down 10 points to our rival, you know? So that game just had a bunch of weird, fluky plays. But to give Oklahoma State credit, despite all the weird controversy and your special teams and offense letting the defense down, they stepped up at the end. They got a win. And we talk about how Ohio State fans have always been able to poke at Michigan. It's been just the same, Chris, for Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And you kind of have to enjoy this one, especially if you're an Oklahoma State fan, because as their coach, Mike Gundy, said earlier this week, they probably won't be able to maintain their Bedlam rival once they go to the SEC. Now, who knows if that's true, but from a scheduling standpoint, I get it. So
yeah.
Your teams,
especially
you're losing. Yeah, you're losing your rival.
Do that, yeah.
Yeah, they whooped up on you all year. That was a really good win. And again, despite all the crazy plays, you made enough when it mattered. And again, hats off to them, because I think they were literally in that 3-15 in their last 18, really similar to what Michigan and Ohio State were. So that was a good gut check win for Oklahoma State. And now they're completely in chance of making the college football playoff.
Yeah, man, and we talked about that last week. How are you going to deny them if they go ahead and, beat, back-to-back top 10 teams type stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting there. Speaking of, we talked about barely stuck by Michigan State, barely stuck by Penn State 30-27. BYU kept it moving against USC. Sorry, I had to bring that up. LSU got a nice dub to close the year for them. Bowl eligible there. I actually called that one too. North Texas. I mean, San Antonio coming in there 11-0. They want respect. They want to move up in the rankings. Wow. Bowl eligible now. Bowl eligible off of that 42. North Texas Mean Green are bowl eligible 45-23. That was probably one of the biggest shockers actually when you break it down of all weekend. Nebraska, what do you know? They lost by a touchdown.
Oh, good
score.
God.
They actually closed the season with basically with the same amount of points. I think it's 239 and 239 or something like that. They scored that much, and because that was the thing before. They had this crazy number where they were outscoring opponents, but they only had one win in the Big Ten, and I think that they actually tied the exact opponents and scoring. I'm looking for it now. 239
Nebraska.
apiece.
I think Nebraska had they were positive by 2 points, Chris.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure it's 239 points scored and 239 points allowed in the Big Ten.
I thought it was a 2 point differential for the positive. It's either 2 points or a tie.
Because they had been positive the whole year, and that was what was scratching the heads, and they went 1-8.
I know.
With that. That's crazy, dude. You wonder what they're going to do there, but they once again were in. I think if they had Martinez in that game, they may have won. Now, there was a block punt and all that, scoop and score, and Iowa ended up doing their thing. But, man, that was a close game. So was that NC State, North Carolina. San Diego State looked really good against Boise State. They finished strong. And like I said, my Minnesota Gophers spoiled the Badgers season. They were going to go to the conference final. They'd be in it if they beat us because they beat Iowa. And that was a nice way to finish off the Golden Gophers regular season. We'd want to be in the conference final, of course, but we lost to Iowa, so that was our own issue. But that was really nice. And PJ Fleck hosted his biggest ever at Minnesota anyway, recruiting night on a night that they at home took the axe away. And now in the last 4 years, that's twice now, 2 out of the last 2. So 2-2 in axe games for my guy Fleck.
Hey, that ain't bad. And one of the coolest sights from Saturday, with, again, many things we've just discussed, was having the Gophers play Jump Around, where if you're a college football fan, you know that is the song that the Badgers always play in Madison. At the end of every third quarter intermission for the fourth quarter, they play the Jump Around song, which everyone knows. And it was just kind of fitting that Minnesota played that on the field after they beat Wisconsin. And even if you're a Badger fan, like, what can you say? Like, they won the game. You know, it's a fun little shot at your rivalry.
Hearing that too, dude. They're hearing that in the locker room, like these
that it's got to get to you. But, you know, that again, like I told you for the show, that's why you love college sports, with moments like that. You know, everything has become so politically correct nowadays and everything in sports that you got to have moments like that where, again, you won the game, you're going to have a little fun, play their song. And I'm sure the Badger players who are going to be there next year are not going to forget that moment.
They're going to remember.
Yeah, that will not be forgotten.
Yeah, it's going to be in Wisconsin next year, so that's what's great about, like you said, these rivalries.
So, yeah, but hey, that was a great win. And for Minnesota, who had such a year of optimism, then you lose your star running back, then you lose another star running back. You actually put together a pretty damn good season for the injury bug that kind of got to you. Despite the Bowling Green loss, which came out of nowhere, not bad at all.
Definitely, no doubt about it. And Mo is coming back another year, baby. The All-American running back is coming back, baby. Which is crazy. I didn't think he would. And then also the crappy pick of the week, New Mexico State 44-27. That's one of the biggest ass whoopings in the crappy pick of the week. 9-4, Marshall, to close. We got to remember this year.
Hey, again, in Vegas, people get paid thousands of dollars a picks, and you're expected to hit at a 56 to 57% clip. I am not good at math, but if you make 13 bets and win 9, I believe that is above 57%. So if you're listening to this podcast and you made us some money, you know, you can send out a Venmo or just give us the 5-star likes. But hey, 9-4, that's a pretty damn good season, Chris, for what, I mean, honestly, I wish I might have to listen to the podcast throughout our years, because I bet we're probably at like a 70% clip for our whole history. Because I think we've won the past 6 years at 8-4, 9-4 every year. So that is such a fun segment to do. I love it. We did decide to do it for college basketball, which is our podcast we get into when the season's over. It's not quite as fun, but it's still a fun segment to do. But yes, 9-4, brother. That's a pretty damn good run for the crappy pick of the week.
Man, gotta love it. Gotta love it. You like making money? 9-4. Okay, so let's start with the big one. I mean, there's a handful of big ones, of course. They're all big, right? No doubt. Everyone's got to win and all that good stuff. But the big one, number 1 Georgia against number 3 Alabama, 6.5 point favorite in favor of the Bulldogs. According to ESPN's Football Power Index, 66.5% chance to 33.5% chance. They got Georgia like it's gonna happen. By the way, Young has 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the year, but I know he's a horrible Heisman candidate. I know those are garbage numbers. Horrible numbers. And look who he had to play. It's not like he played in a tough league or anything like that. But anyway, 6.9 that's a number that the Bulldogs are giving up on defense. They're only giving up 80 yards per game rushing. $151 through the air, and you know a lot of that's garbage anyway, probably. So that's freaking crazy. And oh, by the way, like a lot of these Bama great teams, oh, by the way, they could put up 40 as well, and they probably, pulled on the hold on. Let's just get through this game. They could probably be averaging, higher than Bama. So here we are. Bama basically needs a win to get in. So they are that cornered animal. Are they going to come out and put it all together, or is Georgia finally going to get over the hump because, man, that national championship hump, like that overtime game, like they've been just knocking at a door. Kirby Smart knocking at the door for so long. Is it finally Georgia's year to just put it in Alabama's face and get the job done, Marshall?
So I think you could look at this a lot of different ways, but for me, it's pretty cut and dry. Like, this is not the regular Nick Saban Bama team. If it was, we'd have a fun game, but this is a Bama team who, again, was struggling to score against LSU's defense, who had issues, struggled to score against Auburn, and you can't tell me that a rivalry game automatically makes you score less points. I do know that, sure, the underdog emotions can kind of build up a defensive play, but are we going to say that the underdog emotions of LSU and Auburn were why Bama couldn't score? So if Bama's now going to play the best defense in the land, which is, I mean, true. Now, obviously, with that being said, Georgia is on the lucky side of the SEC. Like, the division of Bama, A&M, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and I'm missing one more. Like that they're on the easy side. So you can maybe say yes, those numbers will not quite be as good. Oh, in Arkansas,
especially this year. So
yeah. So yes, you do get to beat up on like a Vandy and like Missouri as offense was hopeless this year. Tennessee, they actually scored on Georgia in the first half, but those numbers might be slightly inflated. But sure, this is still the best defense Bama's going to play all year. So I just don't see how, if you can't score against other teams, how are you going to score against this Georgia team, who I'm sure, as you said, is looking for a chance to finally knock off Bama, in a big game. So I just don't see how they win. You struggled against Auburn. I mean, it's not like they were sleepwalking through the game. I don't think Bama took Auburn like lightly. It's your biggest rival on the road. Now is Georgia's offense great? I don't think so. But one thing I'll say, I'll wrap this up for my last point here, is that when your defense plays as good as they've played all year, it makes your offensive game easy. Like when you get up 20, 30 points and your defense ain't going to score, you can literally run the clock out and you're going to be just fine for the whole game. So maybe they will have to maybe expand the playbook a bit, Chris. A little bit. I don't know. But
sure.
I like Georgia comfortably with the 6.5. I just think that what has Bama shown us all year to think they can win this game when Georgia, for this year, is, and I believe on paper, truly a better team than Bama.
Yeah, we know Bama has its, running back right? But they did lose their number one guy too. So
sure, that doesn't help at all.
Doesn't, and he's a damn good player too. So I think the wide receiver is going to be back. I'm not sure about that, but I'm going I'm going Georgia. I am going Georgia. The 6.5 points, I still don't feel super comfortable about that. It's not like it's 10.5, but I don't know if I touch the points per se. I'm not sure about that. Because will it be kind of like the last few years of kind of unraveling in a way like Michigan, right? In Ohio State, where it's like, all right, dude, we're going to beat you by 2 touchdowns and double digits, whatever. I could see that happening, but I could also see Bama just rising to the occasion. They're loosey-goosey. They got nothing to lose. And so maybe they keep it close, and maybe Georgia does have to win by a field goal. But I am going Georgia with you. Let's start to kind of talk about – okay, so here we go. Friday, which I think is smart for the Pac-12 to do these conference championship games on a Friday. Shit, it's one of those things, and I brought up the scenario of Nebraska and Wisconsin a chunk of years ago, where Nebraska beat up Wisconsin only to turn around and I believe they got beat up in that game too. I think Wisconsin served it right back to them. Utah and Oregon. Like I said, we just saw this game, and sometimes, it adds to it. Other times you're like, man, I'm not as excited about this game. And Utah, they kind of had they had bumps in the road early. They lost to Oregon State, not that long ago, but they had a really close game with BYU. They lost in triple overtime to San Diego State, who's a quality team. But, man, they've been on a run for a little while now. Can Oregon, I don't think they're going to get beat 38-7. But can Oregon somehow turn this thing around? I mean, Vegas thinks they can. They're only favored by 2.5, the Utes.
I would lean with Utah again. I mean, you kind of, they've done like percentage studies just from a gambling standpoint of, well, you can't beat a team twice in a year, or to kind of talk like that for the NFL or college football. I mean, because I think the old sport gambling mantra used to be, well, hey, you beat your rival once, you got to play him again. Well, you're out. Now it's going to automatically flip the script. Well, it's not necessarily the case, and especially you can't really say that the Oregon Utah first game. I'm struggling here. What I mean to say is that you can't say that Utah had like a fluky win. I mean, sure, the point spread maybe won't be that high again, or the spread of the win. But to say, like Utah got lucky, like I don't think any college football fan would say, yeah, well, man, Utah they were on their game. Like they played their regular type of football, which is run the ball down your throat and don't let Oregon run. And again, I guess I'm not that person. Oh, well, you got to look at the other way now. Well, you got beat for a reason. You got beat bad. Now, it was at Utah, which is a tough place to play. Now you have, I think, the neutral site game, but I would lean again towards Utah just because I think they're the better team. And Oregon, they've not, besides the Ohio State win, really what we were saying, Chris, had played a bunch of games really close this year. Like they had a lot of 7 to 10 point wins against teams that were not maybe on par with the higher end Pac-12 talent, and the games just stay close. Like they never really pulled away from people because they run the ball really well, but that's kind of really all they do. So I'll take Utah to win again in what should be, like you said, a really fun Friday night game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do think it'll be closer and whatnot, but I like Utah just for a lot of the stuff you mentioned. Oklahoma State and Baylor, and speaking of, this is a rematch as well. Now 24-14 was the first one, and this one, not September. I think it was. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. October 2nd. So, it was, as far as this goes anyway, quite a while ago in a sense. This one kind of to me is a little bit of a crapshoot. What I do know is, I mean, both sides could say, well, we had, like Baylor said, well, down the stretch, we had multiple turnover on downs. I'm looking at it right now. They had 3 turnover on downs, and not just the last drive, which you tend to have a turnover on down. And so they say, well, we can play better. The Cowboys, they had some early picks that ended up not costing them, and they didn't play their best either. I don't know. I mean, we just talked about the rematch, right? I kind of feel like this is going to be pretty close as it goes. 5.5 points. I think they won by 10. I think it was 24-14. Here's another one with these over-unders in the Big 12. Maybe that's why Lincoln Riley's getting out of here. He's like, what the hell's all these over-unders doing here? I got to get the hell out of this league. No, I mean, they were anyway. But 46.5 over-under. Baylor in Oklahoma State. That does look funny still. I feel like the Cowboys, it's not like they played only 2 weeks ago, this team. So I think that just overall, they got a good enough quarterback. They got an experienced coach. Obviously, they haven't been in this situation where they only have one loss since they played Stanford in that big game. And that was a crazy game going against, what's his name? Why can't I think of the Stanford's freaking quarterback? What's the Indianapolis Colts? What am I just...
Andrew Luck?
Andrew Luck. I kept saying Love in the back of my head, and I stopped like, What the hell's the damn name? Andrew Luck. Hasn't been in that scenario since, and I remember at this old brewery I used to work at, one of the brewers was that was his squad, and he was just freaking out like, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Obviously, they came up short. But long story short, I think the Cowboys are going to repeat in this one. And then the debate, they're already fifth. The debate starts there as far as, will they jump up and get it? Kind of matters what happens with Bama, obviously, too.
Man, this one's tough. Jesus.
Baylor's played a lot of tight games, too.
Yeah, I know. If you there's so many different ways to look at this. So you can kind of do, well, how did they both play against Oklahoma? And Jesus. I got nothing. Because when you watch Baylor play, their offense isn't over the top. They just have a solid deep. They're not like flat. They used to be such like a 4 or 5 wide running gun, like we're going to score at will. This year, their offense is good, but they're really kind of based on their defense. And Oklahoma State, again, like I said, if the box score kind of lied to you in that Oklahoma game, Oklahoma State's defense played really well too. So this is very odd to say, Chris, but we're in a Big 12 title game. But in my head, I'm trying to decide which defense is better because I think that's what's going to decide it. Normally, you're always going to say who's going to first to 40. Well, maybe this game doesn't even get to a team scoring 40. I doubt it will. So I'm going to lean Baylor, but that's just kind of like, I think this is an evenly matched game with 2 relatively average offenses at best, with 2 great defenses, and which offense can do just a little bit better. Neither offense has to do much, but who can play slightly better will be the winner. And I'll take the Baylor Bears to win this one, but it should be a fun, competitive game. And again, we're talking about variety. It's nice to see Oklahoma not in the playoff picture. It's a different team, like you mentioned with Pitt and Wake.
I got Pitt in that one, by the way.
I'll join. Oh, hell yeah, go Pitt. Go Pitt. That team suffered through so many weird, goofy years. It'd be nice to see them win a title.
Now, let's say that I know this isn't going to probably happen because, you never get anything wrong, but let's just say, okay, theory-wise, that Oklahoma State does beat Baylor. I don't think it's going to happen because I just heard you pick them, but let's just say.
Sure.
Here we are again.
Easily could happen.
Here we are again. I mean, if Alabama loses, you'd assume, I said it, you assume, would they go down to 6th or whatever, 5th, whatever?
They have to. Yeah, Bama's out.
I think so. But if they win, then they're in there. Okay. Point is, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State wins. Who the hell's going to get in there? Because Notre Dame, Cincy, we know has a nice, great on the road to the number 6 team in the country right now. But now it'll be back to back. Still Oklahoma's 14. They're still ranked top 15, I guess, top 14, right? And now they're going against another top 10 team. So to close the year, not AP, not this, not that, but the, college football playoff rankings, to beat 2 top 10 teams back to back. Yes, they have a loss. Yes, it is to a mediocre, run-of-the-mill, just pretty good team. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? What would you do with that, and what do you think they'll do with that?
Oh, man, and again...
It's tough, dude. It is so tough.
It's really unfortunate on Cincinnati that their strength of schedule is not better because they did have a solid non-conference. Not elite, but very solid. But almost every team they played in their non-conference, which was supposed to be a solid to respectable above-average game, those teams had down years due to injuries. So your non-conference record, again, not to your own fault. You tried to schedule average to above-average teams. Like, that's respectable. Like, you did your part.
They did their part by winning, too.
They did their part by winning, but your non-conference schedule is weaker due to the fact you played Indiana, who went like 3-8 this year. Like, okay, that should have been like a good one. Last year, Indiana was like blowing people's minds, and like they were having one of the best seasons they've had in 50 years. So, not due to your fault. And then UCF, like, again, normally a guaranteed 8 to 9 win team sometimes. a respectable squad. We're awful this year. Again, not your fault. So they really, if those teams I just mentioned, Chris, had better years, I think that Cincinnati's got it locked in, because you can't argue about their schedule. But since the teams they tried to schedule were so shitty, again, not due to their fault, I think that Oklahoma State, if they win on Saturday or whenever, Saturday, I think they hop Cincy. I think Cincy gets screwed. I think they get hopped. Just unfortunate due to a non-conference of bad karma, and also the fact that Oklahoma State would now have more impressive wins for a total resume than Cincy can compare with.
And the funny thing is, they'd have to barely beat Houston to keep Houston ranked, but then they barely beat Houston. You know what I mean? So it's like, damn, man. And that's why we need probably 6 teams, 5 or 6 teams like we've mentioned, because then we wouldn't even be having this debate. We just know they're going to get in and that type of thing. But I'm with you. I just don't see, it's not supposed to be a what have you done for me lately, but a lot of times that could be. I'm going Raging Cajuns to beat Appalachian State, even though they're the underdog by 3 points. I'm just going to do that. Michigan, Iowa, real quick. Michigan, Iowa. 11-point spread. We do know that Iowa's defense is legit. Is this one? I'll say this. I think Iowa can keep it under the 11 points, but I'm going with the Wolverines. I could see this kind of being a grinded out, nasty game, just because we still got to get over the hump, man. We still got to go over the hump. It's not over. Or, I'm going to pick that, but I could also see like the floodgates are open. We have so much confidence off just what happened, and we've seen teams peak like this. Speaking of Ohio State, for years now, we were just talking about how they were peaking. They had just beat Michigan State 56-7. You know what I mean? Years ago, when they won the national championship, they beat a top tier Wisconsin team like 50-0 or something like that. I guess Michigan could probably do that too because they have so much confidence. But I'm calling for Iowa with the points and Michigan moving on.
I think if you're in Michigan, just keep things simple like you just did. Run the ball down their throat. And Iowa's got a good run defense, but just it's not elite, but it's good. But just do what you did against Ohio State. The only downfall, Chris, is the fact that these are college kids, and you just had the biggest win in a decade for your school. How can you easily? It could be easily possible to come out dead flat and be down by like 10 points halftime to an Iowa team who has nothing to lose at all. Now, with that being said, Iowa's quarterback sucks. Whether they put out Petrus or they put out that other bum, they are trash. So even if Michigan's offense is flat, Michigan's defense should, and again, if you get beat by this Iowa quarterback, you deserve to miss the whole bowl game. You do. I think that Iowa's offense is so shitty that Michigan will win, but we've seen this happen in college sports. Flat spots occur. You beat Ohio State, you're partying, big man on campus, you think you're making it to the college football playoff, everything is perfect in a gold, silver platter plate. But could they lose the game? I mean, even Vegas is saying, dude, you're an 11-point favorite. You got no business losing it. But crazy things have happened in college. I wouldn't bet the game. I think Michigan should win, but again, this is college football, and crazier things have happened before.
Any other last
poor Harbaugh. Dude, if you lose this, you finally beat Ohio State, but if you lay an egg and you lose to this game and then you lose out on your college football playoff berth, man, you're going to say, dude, Harbaugh's a bum. He's got to go.
And dude, they probably don't go to the Rose Bowl then, because Iowa would probably go to the Rose Bowl then. Because they both have 2 losses. Right. And they would go up. Well, maybe Ohio State would, because they're the higher ranked team by that time. No, because Iowa would jump up. They'd have to jump way up. They just beat the 2 seed.
Dude, if you're Harbaugh, you're giving every coaching angle speech you can, guys. I need you this week. I need you.
Triple reverse, anything, whatever. We're going to fake every kick, every punt, anything. Just try anything. We got to win.
There is a curfew at 8 p.m. No text from the girlfriends. Dude, don't let me down, guys. Don't let me down. Well,
We're taking your phones. One time. We're taking your phones. No Wi-Fi.
Curfew, or you're gonna be fine. You're doing a COVID hotel protocol.
Seriously, man.
Because man, if we do next week's podcast, it's like Iowa Hawkeyes 27, Michigan 24. Oh boy.
That would be such a Minnesota Vikings thing to happen, too. Like, dude, did you see that? That was awesome. Oh, shit. What just happened? Any last words before we shut this thing down, sir?
Is there any other scenarios we've discussed that could possibly happen? Okay, so let's just do this quickly. For Cincinnati to make the playoff, Chris, do they need someone to lose? Or if you whoop up on Houston, who is, I believe, ranked 24th, does a Cincinnati solid victory land them in your mind, or do they need, again, some lady luck?
I think they need Baylor. Baylor. But they are, I mean, Houston is 8-0 in the AAC. They're a good team. They've only lost once. The problem is, we could say, well, who have they beaten? And you look at it, SMU was ranked at that time. They're no longer ranked. And they lost to Texas Tech. You know what I mean? So, I think they need Baylor to win. They're big Baylor fans this week.
And here's the other curveball I'll give you, then we'll wrap it up. Because I don't think this will happen, but if it did, oh shit. Okay, let's say that Bama somehow beats Georgia. Let's say Bama's offense wakes up. So, obviously, Georgia 100%.
Dude, they average 41 a game. I mean, this whole wake up. Hopefully they wake up.
Well, they haven't been playing. Well, I can't get that LSU game or Auburn game out of my head. So, let's say that Georgia gets beat by Bama. Okay, so obviously you can't kick out Georgia because Georgia deserves it. So Georgia's in. That puts Bama in. Then what do you think? What is the trickle down effect of if Bama beats Georgia, because those two are automatically in, then who is looking at the best shot, or who's might get screwed if that situation plays out to wrap this baby up tonight?
I still think it's Cincy. They still need, in that scenario, they still need Baylor, because Notre Dame's not going to jump them. That's the only team that can jump. I mean, if Baylor wins, well, hold on. If Baylor wins, they beat Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. They won 2-loss Big 12 championship. Jump Cincinnati, would they? 11-2. Would they do that? I don't know if they do that. I don't
think so.
Well, Iowa State, I think, was one of their losses. They lost to TCU. They lost to TCU.
Yeah. All right. Also, if you're Cincy, get the pom-poms out for Baylor and hope that turns out that way, because it will be fun to see them in the playoffs.
And handle your business, like you said.
Yes. Take care. There's nothing wrong with trying to run up the score and winning as much as you can against Houston. So, again, it'll be a very fun Friday night, and then Saturday they got the games pretty much spaced out throughout the whole day. I believe Bama Georgia's at 3. I think Michigan Iowa's at 7. So and Oklahoma State
11.
Baylor's at 11. So it's a perfect day. Yeah, all those times are central. To enjoy football with your friends, family, or your favorite bottle of choice, or maybe everything combined. So as always, thanks for the love and support. We'll be back next week with, no matter what, will be a fun show to talk about for our playoff pictures and conference champs. And maybe Matt Corral wins the Heisman. You never know. Can't say never. Until then, the boys are out tonight. Have a good one. Peace.